Charles, let's go back to the very beginning, because I think the history of you and Carphone is fascinating, and how you came to be doing it.
Yep.
When did you were at boarding school with one of your subsequent partners. When did you begin to realise that business was going to be where you were going to be?
I was always interested in how things worked and business. I had a business at school actually with another guy, and we sold sunglasses and pens and lighters and all kinds of.
Were you allowed to? Were you meant to? Or?
Well, they're very interested. The school didn't know how to react really, because they didn't want to discourage sort of a little bit of enterprise, but they didn't want us ripping people off. So in the great custom of Italian business, we had two sets of books, one that we showed the school and one which was the real one.
Were you very sporty at school?
No, I did nothing at school. I didn't do any work. I didn't do anything.
But this brings me on to, at what point did you think I might be a leader?
I don't really think of myself as a leader. I've sort of had the things that I wanted to achieve, and part of that is taking people with you. I was very surprised really that I was able to lead the business.
But you were a salesman at NEC, weren't you?
Yes. So I'm a salesman. I'm not a leader.
But well, we can beg to differ on that. Yeah. But you were a salesman at NEC, and then you had the idea. You could see that mobile phones.
No. I was a salesman selling computers in NEC. Then I got moved to selling mobile phones, yeah. And NEC used to make them. And then I thought, oh, hang on, okay, this mobile phone thing's quite interesting.
But that took quite a lot of courage to leave NEC and to.
It didn't really, because I don't really have any qualifications. I didn't go to university. I was a sales rep. I could have been selling detergents or records, or it didn't matter. So to leave that and go and start a business doesn't matter. If it doesn't work, I'll get another Vauxhall Cavalier and another area to go and sell a product in.
But what was it you saw? In those days, I mean, we forget all this now. The mobile phone was literally a black box, a clunky great thing that people used to carry around.
Yep.
And you somehow saw that as getting a lot smaller.
No, I didn't see that. The only thing I saw was that the customers that the people at NEC were selling phones to were the Vodafones and BTs and people of this world, and they were selling phones to other large organisations, so to British Gas or Xerox or these sorts of people. And what I did see is that the people that were most empowered by having a mobile phone were the self-employed or people with a very small business, and the whole market wasn't addressing them, and the whole category was very messy. It was kind of car stereo shops that sold them. It was an under the railway arch type business if you wanted to buy one as a self-employed photographer or builder or whatever. So the idea of Carphone Warehouse was, we're going to empower small businesses and self-employed people to get a mobile phone, because actually they're the most important client base.
Right. And at what point did you say, I need to bring in, because you had two partners at the beginning, didn't you?
So what happened? I started it, and then Guy Johnson, who yeah. I'd known very well, then he joined me very shortly after it was joined, and then I was at school with David Ross, and I needed to recruit someone better at the books than the person that we had as a finance director, you could possibly call them, and he was working at Anderson's at the time, so I said, will you help me recruit someone, because I don't even really know the questions to ask. So he and I started this process trying to recruit someone. We'd never found anyone any good, and eventually said, I'll tell you what, I'll do it.
And how did it evolve? Because you were always front of house, and he was always in the background. And was that agreed yes. between you, or did you? That's
sort of our characteristics. He's got a degree in law and he's a qualified accountant. So yeah, he was out finding the shops, signing up the shops, doing the books, doing the stuff. And then my role's always been, from having been salesman has always been a bit more about putting the proposition together and working out the ways to actually flog the product.
And when Carphone grew, 'cause it grew spectacularly, and I remember you've only started it in what, 89?
Yeah.
And by 2000 you were up to a significant scale. I mean,
Yeah.
it was huge. So in that decade, it just grew and grew. Now, how were you able to keep on top of what was happening? I mean, you were opening branches galore. You were recruiting people. The business was taking off. You got competitors snapping at your heels. I mean, how on earth did you stay sane, really?
It was, the feeling I describe it was, do you remember when you're a child and you're sort of running down a hill and you're running so fast that you know if you try and stop, you'll fall over. And you've just got to keep, but if you keep running, somehow it keeps going. And if you've got if you're in a very high growth industry, your suppliers and people just want growth. So they're forgiving and they'll give you more working capital and they'll, so a sort of combination of a very fast growing market. We were very young and naive, so we didn't know what we didn't know, and we just got on with it and made it happen.
How were you able to keep on top of your branches? I mean, one of your characteristics was that you encouraged the branch managers to run it themselves, didn't you? But
yeah, we spent quite a lot of money on IT quite early on. And I think that was critical. I think in my experience, you can run up to sort of, I don't know, perhaps six branches manually and keep on top of it. Beyond that, you lose absolute control.
How many of you did you have?
We're up to like 2,000 or something. So we got So and we still have 800 odd in the UK.
And how were you? Because as it grew and grew, I mean, how were you able to train staff? I mean, because the
training's always not been that difficult. We were a fun place to work. Young people tend to be very interested in mobile phones, so they already tend to be kind of quite fluent in talking about them and understanding how they work and actually want to work within the business. We led the business from the front. It was about the customer. It was about choice. There was a pride that people had in the job that they did. So we could always, we never really struggled to recruit. We used to have quite formal. You had to go on a 2-week training course and this kind of stuff.
Well, that brings me on to that. Is your leadership style to delegate, or was there a sort of tight control at the centre?
My leadership is probably quite disorganised. So the things that I'm really passionate about, I'm very involved in, and the things that bore me, I'm not.
So what are the things you're passionate about?
So in those days, it was about, I used to talk to every single group of recruits as they came into the business for an hour, all of the propositions, the marketing, the store design, all that kind of stuff.
But you were always sending emails around, weren't you? You were always available on email.
Yeah, very close, very, very approachable.
But for any assistance, I seem to remember they could contact you, or...
I used to try and...
Was that real, or was it...
No, that was real. I used to try and run it that it was me and the people in the stores versus the middle. Because in most organisations, as they get bigger, the people in the middle become less and less respectful to the people at the edge, and the people
How did the people in the middle feel about this? They
sort of
being got at by the boss.
They just sort of smiled. I don't know. They used to be called the oxygen thieves. So they were the people in the middle that they didn't do anything for a customer. And we used to have it's probably a bit, it's a bit trite these days. We used to have an inverse organisation chart. So the people in the stores were at the top and I was at the bottom, and that's how we used to try very hard. Not to say that it always worked. I did try very, very hard. That everything we did was about empowering the people in the front line to do the job that they needed to do. And in most organisations, that gets very confused.
But where did you gain that? Because you're not an MBA. You're not. Where did you gain this organisational theory from? Because it sounds pretty good.
Well, it's just I think most it's just common sense,
Yeah.
really.
But lots of businesses don't operate like that.
And as you get bigger,
I can think of many that don't.
no, and as you get bigger, it gets much more difficult. But that's how we drove it and grew it, and that's the only way I knew was. All I was ever really obsessed about was the experience that you got when you went in the store and what you could buy. And so the only way I could make that happen was to try and empower the people in the front. We used to have this funny thing that, I never changed this. We used to call what most places would call a head office. I renamed it the support centre, and because its job was to support, it wasn't to boss. And everyone that worked in the support centre called it the support centre, and everyone that worked in a store called it head office. And I never got them to stop thinking of it as head office.
And did you encourage people in the support centre? Were they ordered now and again to go on the front line and see what it's like?
So we invented a thing. We had a passport. Everyone had a passport that worked in the support functions, and you had to go and get stamps from visiting different places, which were different stores around the place, and then you could ask to see. You had to have your passport. You had to have been out enough.
And what did you get when you got when you'd done Aberystwyth and Bangor? And
no, you got to keep your job. That's just what you had to do.
You didn't get around to golf with you or anything like that.
No. And it is still the same. And you talk to anyone that runs a retail business. You never, ever, ever go out in the field and don't learn. It's absolutely it's astonishing. And the bigger companies get, they become more and more stupid. So you have to do it. You have to do it more.
How much time did you devote to looking at the competition? Because, from my experience, a lot of retailers seem to spend a lot of time going around to other people's stores.
Funny thing is, most mobile phone retailing was so poor that I would learn. I was always learning by going in stores that didn't sell mobile phones. So how do they deal with queuing? What do they do? How do they display these things? Go to America is always amazing. Look at what retailers are doing in the US. So the inspiration came from retail. What the other mobile phone retailers did, we knew that, we lived it. It was a small little world, so we knew everything they were doing.
And what you're making it sound, I won't say you're making it sound easy, but you're smooth. What were the mistakes? Looking back, if you could undo one thing, what would it be?
So, we went into too many territories. So we got carried away with that. And I'm not at all complacent, but I think in terms of building out shops selling mobile phones across the UK, somehow we did most things right. I think what we were completely blind to is we effectively invented the comparison site. It was just a comparison site that you walked into. Mm-hmm. And somehow we never thought that we should do it for insurance or credit cards or energy and all of these enormous businesses have sprung up, and we invented that. And then we just just did mobile phones. That was it. It's really odd. I don't know what on earth we were thinking.
And the rise of Carphone has been there've been three. I'd say it's three. You might say more, but three big events along the way. There was the float, Best Buy, and Dixons.
Yeah, no,
that's about right. What prompted you to? Floating must have been a big deal. It's a different world.
It is, but again, if you've never done it, you don't know. So you just you try it.
I know several well-known retailers who always praise the Lord that they've never floated.
No, I'm sure. If you can, I think two things is that one of the most amazing things about Carphone Warehouse is it was started with £6,000 of savings, and by the time it floated, it had never had any other investment and never had any debt. So it has an infinite return on working capital. But to expand, we needed to raise some money to invest to open overseas. And there was me, but there were other people within the business. If you want them to have some kind of liquidity and some kind of an exit, you either do that or you sell it to private equity. If you sell it to private equity, it's sort of it's going to get sold or something's going to happen to it. So, in a funny way, listing the company was the easiest way to still keep running it, but provide liquidity to people.
But did you find, I mean, this is what other people say, that they no longer feel in charge, it's not their business anymore, and that what was theirs is suddenly belongs to these faceless institutions. You suddenly find yourself sweating at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to see what the share price is. And
I wouldn't say that. I would say that I've never been in a business owned by private equity. I would feel that more. The great thing about a public company is there's complete liquidity. So if someone doesn't like what you're doing, they sell the shares this afternoon. They're not locked into it.
But that can also be very short term, and
they can. But
there must be times when you think, what the hell are they doing? Can't they see what I see?
Of course, but yeah, I've done it long enough now that to a degree, if you stick, old hand is if you learn to be a bit stubborn and stick to your guns and do what you want to do, and you have good days and bad days, and you just hopefully more good than bad. And we've got shareholders that have been shareholders in the business for years, and we've done some pretty weird things. Gone to America, started talk, done all kinds of things, and they've been loyal with us. And I think after a while, you can build something of a relationship with them. They go, well, okay, you've done okay so far. If you really think that's a good idea, okay, well,
And how'd you get on with the analysts? Because they're normally a lot worse.
I think the analysts matter a lot less these days. When we first floated, the analysts really, really mattered. And if someone wrote a good or a bad note or whatever, it really changed the share price. It doesn't really work that way. The whole sort of, I think since the crisis, the whole system's been a bit discredited, hasn't it? And I think that the buy side, the investors feel they have to do much more of the work now to do the research and understand what they're buying. I remember when we were floating the company, one of the analysts of one of our brokers, it didn't feel at the time, but sort of kind, he did a kind thing to me as we were on a roadshow somewhere. He just pulled me to one side and said, you got to understand, I'm not on your side. My only job is to move the share price that allows my bank to trade lots of your shares. We don't care whether that's going down or going up, and all I've got to do is think of reasons to make the share price move. So don't ever think I'm your friend.
Well,
it's very honest. And that is how it works. But I think the investors now also see that the bank, the broking houses just want transactions. So they just want to create volatility and news. Yes. And if you're actually managing someone's pension, you need to take a more considered longer term view, and you need your own opinion, not the opinion of someone paid for by the bank.
That brings me on to my next question. This is a sort of tricky one. Have you ever responded to an analyst's note, or changed tack, or done something you mightn't otherwise have done in response to something that's been written? In other words, I'm
thinking,
they're questioning your strategy, and you suddenly think, I ought to do that.
No, it's more analysts. It's more about disclosure and how you present the story. One of the great things, though, they're quite tedious going on roadshows to meet the investors. However, if you spend 2 or 3 weeks meeting some of the brightest minds there are, interrogating you about your business, you definitely come back going, God, that's really, why hadn't I thought of that? That's an interesting risk, or that's an interesting opportunity, or why aren't we doing this? So that's that's like having McKinsey sort of free for 3 weeks, just questioning your strategy. So definitely I have, after meeting investors, typically not analysts, because analysts are not really driven by strategy. They're really driven by numbers.
Right. And when it came to Best Buy, was that you on your own, or did it? Who did you consult? How do you take decisions as big as that one?
Well, the first one was, do we go and help them sort out their mobile phone business in the US? we didn't put any capital into that, so it was a kind of one-way bet, really. So it didn't take that much thinking, and we'd always loved Best Buy. We'd always been to their stores. We'd always thought of them as these fantastic retailers. So doing that was fine, and then the business just went unbelievably well over there. I've never seen anything like it. There's a lovely Australian guy who worked for Stewed who actually ran the business out there for us, and it's Christmas Eve, I don't know, 2-3 years in or something, and their like-for-like sales were like 65% up or something yet again. It was just unbelievable, and I just rang up Jude. It's amazing. The job you guys are doing is quite incredible. And he just said to me, he was very disarming, just said, Charles, I still haven't done anything clever, mate. I've just done what we know. And that was an amazing moment of what we knew about phones. Then they wanted to buy into half of our business and wanted to open the stores. That felt the right thing to do if I was selfish from a Carphone Warehouse point of view, that we had a pretty leveraged balance sheet at that time, having built up TalkTalk and made acquisitions there. And I think everyone could see the storm clouds on the horizon. So to really deleverage the balance sheet felt like a great thing to do. Best Buy were really, really keen to open some stores in the UK. It wasn't a market I understood, so he was like, "Well, I'll help you if you want to, but it's got to be your team. You've got to know what you're doing." And then, in the end, a combination of headwinds here, tough market at home, financial crisis. It was much harder than they expected, and they quit. I think at 12 stores.
But you don't regard that as a mistake that was personal, because you were heavily identified with it. I mean,
yeah, I don't mind that. No, I mean the price of everything that we did, of going to America and all of those things, so the value that we created for our shareholders out of that transaction, that we opened 12 stores and shut them, that's a tiny, tiny, tiny price to pay. And that's something that really mattered to our partner. So they were our partner. We had to support them in doing it.
But when you're dealing with big stuff, I mean, this is big stuff. We're talking about billions of dollars, and
well, we lost £85 million on those stores. So it's not enormous.
No, but
yeah.
But the whole Best Buy project was. I mean, who do you turn to for advice? I mean,
I do with my team. Roger, who's my CFO.
Do you talk to bankers? Do you?
No. You've got to understand, they're like the analysts. They want a transaction. No, we've just done it. We're very self-contained. We've always done things our own way. We've never been we've avidly never been a member of a single trade body. We don't want to be in an industry. We don't want to be part of it.
So you're not in British Retail Consortium or anything
not in
like
the
that?
CBI, nothing. None of those
You're not
things.
even in the CBI?
No. We just do our own thing, and if we'll fight our own battles and we'll solve our own problems.
But that's a slightly. I mean, is that you craving loneliness or identity? So I don't want to get all psychological.
It's about.
It's a bit odd that you're not in those organisations.
No, because we know what we want to do. We know what matters to us. We're in a. We've proven over the years it's a pretty unusual business. It doesn't have that many similarities with that many other businesses, and we've always found we're just better on our own, working out what we want to do ourselves. We know more about our business and how it works, and so no, we'd much rather do our thing. And if we've got a problem and we need to go and lobby someone, we'll go and bring them up and go and see them. We don't need a trade body to do that.
And when it came to Dixons, that was how big a decision was that?
It's not. You don't wake up one morning and say, "I'm going to do this," or "I'm going to do this." It's an idea that develops, or you begin to think about where's the market going, what's going to happen, how's customer behaviour changing, what's happening with the networks. So really behind that is two things. We'd made such a phenomenal success of selling mobile phones in Best Buy, and Currys PC World were missing an enormous opportunity because they weren't as active in the mobile market as they could have been. But we'd learned with Best Buy, it's actually very difficult. shift in mindset for a traditional retailer to sell mobile phones. Everything is different. So we chatted, we thought about that. We then thought about how so many of the devices that our customers were buying were going to become connected, and how many more of them are going to be connected, and the connected home and the Internet of Things and all these things that people are talking about. And we don't have the space in our outlets to tell that story. So there's a risk. We had to avoid becoming a niche specialist retailer where the breadth of what people were buying and the problems that they needed solving got so much bigger. But we had a footprint and experience and knowledge that made it impossible for us to do that. They similarly could see everything was going to connectivity, and you need the ability to connect things. So it became quite a natural thing. We knew the people there, we got on with them. They're nice people, people like us, and so that's how the conversation developed.
Who asked the first one out for a date, as it were?
So it was Andrew Harrison, who works for me, is now the deputy CEO of Dixons, and Seb, and they knew each other very well, and they talked about it, and then I had a chat with Seb, and then we had a chairman's type conversation.
And were you sort of gulping inwardly at what you were doing? Or
No, we'd looked at it. Funny enough, when we were together with Best Buy, we'd looked at it.
Right.
We looked at doing it then rather than opening those 12 stores.
Right.
So no, we were familiar with the business and how it would look and how it would work.
Yeah. And your entire retail career has been in a very, probably the fastest moving, fastest growing industry there's been. I mean, it's just sort of transformed the world. How have you managed, are you led by manufacturers, or how does that work, that relationship?
The great thing about being a retailer is that you innovate the service that you give to customers and the systems that you have to provide that service, but fundamentally the innovation is happening in Cupertino or Seoul or wherever, and whoever's, we used to sell any iPhones, and we used to sell, loads of Blackberries, but the world changes, and the great thing about being a retailer is that so long as you've got a very strong conduit to get product to customers, the manufacturer has to come to you to get to those customers. And so we rely on their innovation. I always used to say to the business that it was never our job to generate awareness about mobile phones. It was just our job to convert people that thought they wanted one into buying it from us.
Take that example of BlackBerry and the iPhone. There's BlackBerry, it's stuttering against the iPhone. And are you on the phone to Canada saying, sort yourselves out because we're not selling as many of these things as we should be? Or
No. So we work with...
You need to get down the road and see what Steve Jobs is doing.
But by the time I'm saying that, it's probably the horse has already bolted.
Yeah, but you're quite important in the...
No, but it's more of us going to them and saying, listen, customers are saying this to us. People are doing this. This is what we're selling. This is the categories that you're in. These are the competitors' products. This is what we think you need to do. Not to redesign the product, but it might be in terms of pricing policy or specification. So it's much more, because we do business with these guys day in, day out, week after week. You can't have a very confrontational relationship because we need them in good times and bad times, and it's symbiotic. We've got to work together. So we do quite a lot of work trying to help the manufacturers and the networks and people to think about the products and services that we sense people want. And if you're disappointed with your sales, you go and see our buyers. They'll tell you exactly why and exactly who's buying what and what features they like. There's a great, absolutely true story that when the iPhone was just come out, and Andrew and I went to Helsinki for a meeting with the very, very senior guys in Nokia, and they had a new product called the N97, and there was the iPhone. And we were saying, you need to be careful, guys, because this thing is really catching people's imagination. It wasn't selling like crazy then, but people were really, and the apps were beginning to be developed, and their phone was lots of different things, very difficult to use. And Andrew said, and they said in the meeting, the thing with this iPhone, even my 4-year-old son can use it. And the guy from Nokia said, we don't make phones for 4-year-olds. And you're like, okay.
Gosh, fatal.
Yeah, and but we did, so we went there purely to say, watch out, guys, because we can see what's happening.
But isn't it a bit more than that? Because it's also affecting your business. I mean, if you
no, because we'll in the end we'll sell what sells.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of being. I mean, it's a retailer that retails other people's products. Obviously, if you're in fashion and you're making the products, you're absolutely, you're driven by what you make. But in our case, where we don't make anything ourselves, people are going to want mobile phones. People are going to keep innovating, and we'll keep selling. We'll keep selling what people want and what's been innovated.
You've reached a point where you're about the last one left standing. I mean, the independent retailer, as opposed to the networks. I mean, how do you keep going? I mean, how do you guard against complacency and?
I think what happened is that as markets mature, particularly in the UK, is that independents tend to get subsumed or driven out by chains because of efficiency and all of the. And I don't know whether you're selling shoes or you're a chemist or it's happened. It's sort of happened in every business. And you might have expected there to be 2 independent retailers, and our Phones for You, who were our competitors, sort of managed to commit suicide. Yeah. So it ended up with us. We then obviously got together with Dixons. So our scale is now so much bigger because we've got all these out of town stores that we're selling mobile phones in. So there's a Carphone Warehouse in the store underneath here. Yeah.
Did you call in?
I haven't called in.
Can you walk past one of your branches without going in?
I can. I'll always look in. It depends where I'm going, what I'm doing. It depends how busy they are. Also,
if you go in, will they know who you are?
Some and some. They might not down there because it's a Curry's PC World. But yeah, if I went to there's a store at the bottom of Tottenham Court Road. If I went in there, they'd know know who I was. So we've got 1,200 stores selling mobile phones in the UK now. We've got coverage absolutely everywhere. But we have lots of competition from the network stores, lots of competition between the networks. So it's a healthy market.
And how would you describe your own leadership style? Because you've now been doing it a long time. I mean, it may have happened naturally and organically, as it were, but you've been doing it so long, you must have a fairly set format. Would you hold regular 8:30 meeting every day or? Last call at night.
I've also said I'm the chairman of these places now. I'm not the.
Yeah, but you're still the boss, aren't you?
No, I'd say definitely not in Dixons Carphone, because when we merged, Seb James, who was the CEO of Dixons Group, became CEO. I have to be respectful to him because he's not. He didn't. I didn't found the business that he runs, so it is a different relationship. So I see him a lot. I talk to him a lot. We talk about things, and I go to stores, and I do all these things. But I don't. I would never instruct one of his direct reports or someone else to do something without it, without talking about it with him and agreeing it, and I'm probably getting him to ask them to do it. So I have learned to be, and then in Talk, I'm the chairman, but Dido is very, very strong CEO. So I'm still the founder there, so my fingers are probably a little bit deeper in the pies. But again, it's her business, and I help her.
Do you throw cups and
No.
throw things at people? You don't.
No. I don't.
Did you ever lose your temper?
I probably lost my temper. Probably, I don't know. And the whole time I've been doing it, perhaps 2 or 3 times. I don't. I'm very
Gosh.
calm person. I actually don't mind how bad something is, so long as it's getting better. The thing that I just find incredibly depressing. I don't get angry is when something isn't working and it's just getting worse. That's just I just can't. I can't possibly live with that. I have to, and then I have to roll my sleeves up and get involved and fix it.
And what about because you've also led other organisations miles away from the high street, I mean, notably Prince's Trust, and that must be very different. So is your leadership style the same there, or do you take lessons from Carphone and I mean, quite different environment from retail?
I just think you've got to be passionate about what you do, and make it, and try and make it as much as you can, an exciting and fun place where people are really committed to, what you're trying to achieve as an organisation and a business. I'm very decisive, so not to let things hang around forever. I'm very approachable. I don't stand on ceremony, and I always want to create, and it goes all the way back to those Carphone stores and me and the stores versus the middle. I just want to create a sense that it's all of us in this together, and I'm no genius, I'm no better than anyone else, but just together we're gonna make this happen, and while we're doing it, we're gonna have fun, we're gonna laugh, and also whether you could, in many cases, we haven't achieved it, is my kind of, I guess the principle that I started with, even all that time back at school, is I want to make something that's better than what was there before. I like being the challenger. I like, people like Richard Branson, I think, were a great inspiration to my generation to say, well, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be better. It can be different. It can be more unconventional.
But Branson's, having started his record shops, and then founded an airline, trains, Virgin provides Virgin Cola. I mean, have you never wanted to take the Carphone model or and go into other areas?
It's grown. I mean, it's grown to such a scale that is kind of all I could ever keep my arms around. If you like, Talk grew out of it, and then we separated it. And in the day when I'm talking about, he was just records and an airline.
Sure.
In those days, and probably when I was growing up, it was the airline that he said, we'll send a chauffeur car to pick you up. We'll have a bar in the plane. We'll do all of these things that just no one thought an airline would do. And his view, it doesn't have to be like that. We'll make it fun. And all the people that worked at Virgin thought that they were part of this party, and it was very, very clever, and it was very inspiring. So I've always wanted to. We have one of our mottos has always been, if the world zigs, we zag. Always try and do the opposite of what everyone does, and do the thing that people wouldn't expect you to.
And have you ever wanted, because you're on the receiving end of all these manufacturers, and you must say, there's not been a point where you think, we could do this better than these guys, or has that never crossed your mind?
And we'd massively cross the line in terms of our relationship with everyone, in that you think, both with our suppliers, but also with you as a customer, because our motto was always, we're going to give you simple, impartial advice. And so if we say, this is the one that we make, that's completely destroyed.
I can see that.
And also, as I was saying earlier, the beauty of the business model is you're relying on other people's innovation. I don't want a warehouse full of stock that we thought was the clever thing. Turns out it wasn't.
And finally, I suppose, how do you wind down? Because this is a pretty full-on life you've had. You sail, don't you?
Yes, but I would say in the last probably 6 years, as I've become chairman and this kind of thing, I've got a better balance. So there was a time when literally every waking hour I worked on the business, and I'd probably dedicated 15 years of my life to it almost exclusively, and then I've got to a much better balance.
And what percentage of your time now would you say is devoted to work?
I still work. I work 5 days a week. I still work fully, but I'm not. I'm not having to get on a plane to go and meet someone in Madrid to do this at 5 o'clock in the morning and then try and get back for a 2 o'clock meeting and
Yeah.
that I used to do. I was in New York recently, and I've never taken it before, but I took this flight back. There's actually a flight called the Chairman's Flight, which leaves New York at 8 in the morning and arrives back in London at 8:30 at night or something. And the chairman can take it because they can afford to lose a day in their schedule rather than get 4 hours sleep on a plane. And I thought, all right, I've finally made it. I've taken the chairman's flight.
And you've no thoughts of retiring, or?
No,
Because you're still relatively young. I mean,
but also I think you need to make life worth living. You need to get up, and there needs to be some friction that you need to overcome to make something happen. And if you don't have that, and I just went and bought a coffee and read the paper and then came back and asked what was for lunch, or I would go absolutely crazy. Someone said to me, I thought it was quite good that life's a bicycle, and if you stop pedaling, you fall over.
yeah. Right.
That's what you have to do.
That sounds like a good note to end with. So thank you very much.
Great pleasure. Thanks, Chris. Thank you very much.